Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more. Rain's brought down some dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. A number of people who thought they were ripe, young, and spry have noticed they can't bounce up a flight of stairs like they used to without their hearts fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways, too. A number of our young people fell in love and got married. Millions of gallons of water have gone by in the mill. The mountain's gotten away a few fractions of an inch. A new house has popped up here and there under a new roof. Almost everybody gets married. In our town, there are hardly any exceptions. Almost everybody climbs into their graves married. The first act is called A Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about. It's June 7th, 1904, just after high school commencement. That's right around the time most of our young people decide to jump up and get married. Yes, as soon as they've passed their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, they find themselves right fit to be married. It's early morning. Only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's garden drenched. All those pea vines and bean poles drenched. All along Main Street yesterday, it looked like curtains being blown along. They begin to get anything picked up. There's the 5:45 for Boston. And here's Mrs. Webbs and Mrs. Gibbs come downstairs to make breakfast, just as if it were an ordinary day. I don't have to tell the ladies in my audience that those two women that they see before them cooked 3 meals a day every day. One for 40 years, one for 20, and no summer vacation. Raised 2 children apiece. Washed, cleaned the house. Never had a nervous breakdown. It's like one of those Middle West poets say. You've got to have life to love life, but you've got to love life to have life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
I see.
There's Howie Newsome delivering the milk. And there's Cy Crowell, delivering the paper like his brother before him.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Si. Anything in the papers I don't know?
Nothing much. Except, we're losing about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He could hit and run bases, too.
Yeah, mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie! I guess I can stop and talk if I have a mind, son.
I don't see how we could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Si. Never have to go down that way. You're up early, Bill.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Si Crowell's all worked up here about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Si. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to Maine. Became a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how's the weather look to you?
Oh, tain't bad. I think maybe it'll clear up for good.
Good morning, Howie. Do you think it's going to rain again?
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. Why do you think it rained so heavy last night that maybe it'll clear up?
I certainly hope it will.
How much do you want tonight?
Oh, I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
Yes. My wife says to tell you as how we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. And tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Yes, she'll get there. She'll get there if she can. Good morning, Mrs. Webb.
Morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts, but I'm hoping you can spare me another.
Yes, and a 2 cream.
Will it rain again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I was just saying to Mrs. Gibbs is how it may clear up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you how we both hope they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Thank you. I'm thanking Mrs. Newsom. And we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, we hope to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Don't start that, Frank Gibbs. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom's up there shaving himself. The only problem is, there isn't an awful lot to shave. He's whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, "I do," to the mirror, but it doesn't sound convincing to me.
To declare, Frank, I don't know how he'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd make a mistake for sure. But then, I saw you coming down that aisle, and I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. The only problem was that I'd never seen you before. There I was in a congregational church, marrying a complete stranger.
And how do you think I felt? Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made something for you.
Oh, why, Julia Hersey. French toast.
It isn't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Well, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great dangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing so terrifying as having a son. The relationship between father and son is the darndest awkwardest.
Well, mother and daughter's no picnic, let me tell you.
They'll have their troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everybody has a right to their own troubles.
Yes. People are meant to go through life 2 by 2. It isn't natural to be lonesome.
You know what was one of the things I was worried about when we first got married, Julia?
I'll go along with you.
I was afraid that we wouldn't have enough material for conversation, more than what would last us a few weeks. I was afraid that we would just sit there and eat our meals in silence, as a fact. Well, you and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spell.
Well, good weather, bad weather. It isn't very choice, but I always find something to say. Did you hear Rebecca starting around the stairs?
No, it's the first time of the year she's not managing everybody's business up there. She's stuck in her room. I got the impression she's crying.
Oh, Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca! Rebecca, come and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 hours left to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just across the grass to see my girl.
George, you put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of this house without your being prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
Now, George, you'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but while you're in my house, you'll live wisely. Thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee
No,
first.
I'll be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, George, you frightened me. Now now you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Well, why not?
George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day until he sees her in the church.
Oh, but that's just superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
You don't believe in that superstition, do you?
Well, there's a lot of common sense in superstition, George.
Millions have followed you, George, though you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
Well, how's Emily?
Oh, she hasn't woken yet. I haven't heard a word out of her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder we were up to all hours sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll set you down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. And I'll go upstairs and see that she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, you don't believe that superstition, do you?
Well, on her wedding day, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes and one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
I guess I never thought of it like that.
A girl's bound to be a mite nervous on her wedding day.
No. I wish a fella could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that's ever lived has felt that way about it, George, but it hasn't been any use. See, it's the women folk who built up weddings, my boy, and for a while now, they've had it all their own. See, a man looks pretty small at a wedding, but with all these good women standing shoulder to shoulder with one another, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe me, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes, oh, yes. Now, don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you misunderstand me, my boy.
No, sir. So, Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, let's see. I'd been to college, and I'd taken some time to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Now, age doesn't have much to do with it, my boy, not compared with other things.
No, what were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other day of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said. Charles, start out early showing who's boss, he said. Best thing to do is give an order, even if it doesn't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, her conversation or anything, just get up and leave the house. That will make it clear to her, he said. And oh yes, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Oh, Mr. Webb, I don't think
So I took the opposite of his advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George. You never ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been much interested.
A book came into my office the other day, George, on the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. See, I'm thinking of putting a small way in the backyard. I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about something worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you have any good advice for the boy, I'll go and leave you with him.
George, Emily's got to come and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but does not want to lay eyes on you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, I guess you forgot the older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, a bridegroom should never see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. Now, you forget that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Now, we'll have to interrupt here again. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding. This plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how such things begin. You know how it is. You're 21, 22 some. You make some decisions, and then you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady by your side has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are about to show you the first moments that they knew, as the saying goes, that they were meant for one another. But before they do, I want you to remember what it was like when you were very young. Particularly the days when you were first in love. You're like a person sleepwalking. You didn't quite see everything in front of you when walking in the street. You didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that for me? Now, the children will be coming out of school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the senior class, and as it is June now, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yep. So they are. I can't stay, Lois. I've got to go home. Another time?
Emily, can I carry your books home for you?
Thank you. It isn't far.
Hey, George! 1 second, Emily. Say, Bob, I'm a little late for practice. Give her some long high ones, will ya? All right, George. Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me awful funny lately.
Since you asked, I might as well say it right out, George. Oh, goodbye, Miss Parker.
Goodbye, Miss Parker. What was it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I've just got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
Change? What do you mean?
Well, up until a year ago, I used to like you. A lot. And I used to watch you while you did everything. Because we've been friends for so long. And then you began spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not to really speak, not even to your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. You've got awful conceited and stuck up, and all the girls say so. They may not say it to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it, but I've got to agree with them a little because it's true. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
I'm glad you said it. I never knew such a thing was happening to me. You know, I guess it's hard for a fella not to have some faults creep into his character.
Well, I always expect a man to be perfect. And I think that he should
No,
be.
I don't think it's possible for anyone to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is. And as far as I can see, your father is. And there's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I think it's the other way around. Where men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. Because it's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. No, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Oh, Emily.
I can see it's not the truth at all. And suddenly I feel it's not important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Thank you. What?
Hello, Stu. How are you? Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What can I get? Why, Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She was almost hit by the hardware store wagon. Everyone in town says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now. You take a seat, Emily. You best have a drink of water. You look all shook up. Gotta look both ways before crossing Main Street. Gets worse every year. What can I get for you?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Morgan.
no. Have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, please, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses this minute I'm talking to you in Grover's Corners. State inspector was in here yesterday, and now they're bringing in these automobiles. Why, I remember when a dog could just go to bed in the middle of Main Street and nothing come along to disturb him. The best thing to do is to just stay at home. Well, you two enjoy them. Yes, Mrs. Ellis. What can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Oh, no. Don't you think of that. We're celebrating our election. And do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know what made me say it. It's not true.
No, Emily, you stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character, but you'll see, I'm going to change so quick. Oh, you bet I'll change. Emily, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
When I go away to State Agriculture College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't seem so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all New Hampshire. But I think it's a very nice town.
No, the tape wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, try to make my letters interesting.
You know, every time I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agriculture school in order to be a good farmer.
Oh, my.
And some of them say it's a waste of time, even. I mean, you can get all those things out of pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start taking over his farm. I mean, tomorrow, if I could.
My.
And like you say, being gone for all that time in new places with new people, gosh, if something like that can happen, I don't want to go away. Emily, I think you're as good as a friend as I've got. I don't need to go meeting new people in new towns.
Well, why, George, but maybe it's awfully important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Well, Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Wait, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. I mean, it's a whole year
Emily,
away.
I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was right, but there was one thing wrong with it, and that was when you said that for a whole year I wasn't noticing anyone. And you, for instance, said you were noticing me. Well, I was doing the same about you the entire time. Why, sure, I always thought of you as one of the chief people I thought about. I mean, I always made sure where you were sitting on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always gotten in the way. Why, just the other day, I was waiting over by the wall for you, and you walked home with Mrs. Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. How could I have known that? See, I thought when you were reading...
No, Emily. I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to State Agriculture College. I think that once you've found a person you're very fond of, I'm someone who's fond of you too and cares about you enough to be interested in your character. Well, I think that's just as important as college is. That's what I think.
I think that's awfully important too.
Emily,
Yes, George?
if I do make a big change, could you
I am now and I always have been.
So I guess this is an important conversation we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wait 1 second, I'll get my things. Oh, Mr. Morgan, I don't have the money to pay you back for this.
Why, George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Oh, yes, Mr. Morgan, but I had reasons. Here's my gold watch to keep until I have the money to pay you back.
Keep your watch, George. I'll trust you.
No, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George. Not a minute over.
Got over all your shock, Emily? Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, let's get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding. There are a lot of thoughts that go on during a wedding. We couldn't get them all into one wedding naturally, especially not one here in Grover's Corners. They're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about the matter. For a while now, things get kind of serious. Some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago. People were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but even at a good wedding, people are so put together that there's a lot of confusion way down deep in the back of people's minds. We thought that ought to be in our wedding too. The real hero of the scene isn't on the stage at all, and you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. Nature's been pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature is interested in quantity, but I think she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget about all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's all my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. suppose there's nothing to cry about, right? It came over me at breakfast this morning. And Emily was eating her breakfast as she's done for 17 years. And now she's gonna go off and eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she said all of a sudden, I can't eat another mouthful, and she put her head down on the table and she cried. There's something downright cruel about the way we send our girls into marriage this way. I mean, I hope one of her girlfriends said a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't say anything. I mean, I went into this blind into that myself. This whole world is wrong. That's what's the matter. There they come.
Hey! George! Hey, George! Oh, he looks scared stuff! He's so innocent, you old geezer. We know what you're thinking.
Hey, don't disgrace the team, big boy! Woo! All right!
There used to be a lot of that in the old days, in Greece and Rome and later. We're much more civilized now, so they say.
George? George, what's the matter?
Mom, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Why, George, you wanted it.
No, Ma, listen to me.
No, George. You're a man now.
Ma, for the last time, please, I beg of you, listen to me. All I want to do is be a fellow.
George, anyone should hear you. Now stop. I'm ashamed of you.
Your unbounded love thou art.
What?
Visit us with
Where's Emily?
salvation, and to every
George, you give me such a turn.
heart.
Cheer up, Ma. I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over for dinner every Thursday night. Ma, why are you crying? Come on, we've got to get ready for this.
I've never felt so alone in my entire life. And George over there, looking so... I hate him! I wish I were dead. Papa!
Emily, no, don't get upset.
Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything's all right.
Why can't I just stay a while? Just as I am. Let's go away.
No, stop and think a minute.
Papa, don't you remember what you used to say? All the time you used to say that I was your girl. There must be lots of places we could go to where I could work with you. I could keep house.
Emily, you mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous. George, will you come here a minute? Why, you're marrying the best young fella in the world. George is a fine fellow.
Papa.
I'm giving away my daughter, George. Do you think you can take care of her?
I want to. I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you, Emily. Emily, I need you.
If you love me, help me. All I want is for somebody to love me.
I'm going to.
And I mean forever. Do you hear forever and ever?
come quick. Now you know that everything will be all right.
Do you, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your wedded wife, to have...
Oh, perfectly lovely wedding! Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love weddings, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man, George, to be your wedded husband, to have...
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding! Oh, but I always cry. I don't know why it is, but I always cry. I guess I just like to see young people happy. Don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
The rings? I've married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times. It's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they such a lovely couple? I do love weddings. I sure hope they're happy. I always say, happiness, that's the great thing. Oh, the important thing is to be happy.
Well, friends, that's the second act. We're going to take a brief pause now. Feel free to stand up and stretch if you like. The choir has a song for you.
mountain and I turned around. And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, will the landslide bring it down? And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills, will the landslide bring it down, down? Will the landslide bring it down?
This time 9 years have gone by. Summer 1913, friends. Gradual changes in Grover's quarters. Less horses than there used to be. Farmers coming into town in Fords. Everybody locks their doors at night. There haven't been any burglaries, but everyone's heard about them. You'd be surprised though. On the whole, not much changes around here. This is certainly an important part of Grover's Corners. It's on a hilltop, a windy hilltop. Lots of sky and clouds. Often lots of sun and moon and stars too. You come up here on a fine afternoon and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington. That's where Conway and North Conway is. And of course, my favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock. And there are all these towns that lie around it. Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Petersboro and Dublin, and there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. This is certainly a beautiful spot. Mountain laurel and lilac. I often wonder why anyone would want to be buried in Woodlawn or Brooklyn. They might spend the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over here are the Oldstones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded people that came a long way to be independent. Summer people like to come up here and laugh at the funny names on the tombstones. I suppose it don't do much harm. Genealogists get paid by city folk up in Boston to look up their ancestors. Want to make sure that they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I suppose that don't do much harm either. Whenever you come here, the human race, there's bound to be layers and layers of nonsense. Over here are the Civil War veterans, iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys that had a mind that the Union ought to be kept together, but they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends, the United States of America. The United States of America. And they went and died about it. This is the new part of the cemetery. There's your friend, Mrs. Gibbs. And Simon Stimson, the organist at the Congregational Church. Oh, and Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so. You remember? Oh, and many others. Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip up to Crawford Notch. Yes. An awful lot of sorrow has sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their loved ones up to this hill. And then time and sunny days and rainy days and snow, and we're all glad that they're in a beautiful place. We're coming up here ourselves when our fit's over. You see, there are some things that we all know, but we don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. That eternal thing isn't houses, and it isn't names, and it isn't earth, and it isn't even the stars. We all know in our bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people that have ever lived have been telling us that for thousands of years, and yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There is something eternal about every human being. Now, you know as well as I do that the dead don't stay interested in us living for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away. That's the way I like to put it, weaned away. Well, the earth part of them burns out and burns away. And all the while, they start to grow indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something that they feel is coming. Something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part in them to come out clear? Now, some of the things they are about to say might hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. And what's left when your memory's gone? And your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there are some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a newly made grave. And a Grover's Corners boy who left town to go out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive, of all people. I should have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes. I've been away over 12 years now. I'm in business now out in Buffalo, Joe. But I was in the East when I heard of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little, come to the old home. You look well.
Yes. Yes. Can't complain. Very sad, our journey today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yes. I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. I had to come early today. My son supervised at the home.
There's old Farmer McCarty's grave. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yes. We brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
There's my Aunt Julia's grave. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course. Of course.
Yes. Doc Gibbs lost his wife 3 years ago now. Today's another pretty bad blow for him too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy. Sam. Sam Craig.
I'm always so uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they write their own verses much, Joe?
No. Not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
Doesn't sound much like my Aunt Julia. Yeah, there aren't many of those Hersey sisters left. Let me see now. Where are... I'm looking for my mothers and fathers.
Over there, Craig's, Avenue F.
He was an organist at the church, wasn't he? Used to drink a lot, you'd say.
Nobody was supposed to know about that. He had seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know?
Oh, did he?
Hung himself. In the attic. He tried to hush it up, but of course, it got around. He chose his own epitaph, though. You see it there. It ain't a verse, exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. Well, what is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. Just wrote it in Boston papers at the time.
How did she die?
Who?
My cousin.
Didn't you know? Had some trouble bringing the baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's a little boy about 4 years old.
Grave's gonna be over there?
Yes. There ain't much more room over here among the Gibbses. So they're opening up a whole new Gibbs section on High Avenue B. You'll excuse me now. See, they're coming.
Who is it, Julia?
My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare. The road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
Childbirth.
Childbirth. I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? Oh, and I remember Emily reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Why, she was the brightest girl that ever graduated from high school. I heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm, just before I died. It was a lovely farm.
It's on the same road we lived on.
Yep, nice smart farm. I always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, Mrs. Gibbs. Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hello. It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
Seems thousands and thousands of years since. Papa remembered that this was my favorite hymn. I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Simpson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs! George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and a great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We built that out of the money you left us.
I did?
Yes. Mother Gibbs, don't you remember the legacy you left us? It was over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs, and it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's mine. It won't be the same to George without me, but it's a lovely farm. Life people don't understand, do they?
No, dear.
Not
very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mr. Carter's. Mrs. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? Being one of them? How long does it...
Shh, dear. Just wait and be patient.
I know. I know. Look. They're finished. They're going. Look. Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. He looks just like George, doesn't he? Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark life persons are. Look at him. I loved him so. From morning till night, that's all they are. Troubled.
Little cooler than it was?
Yes.
That rain's cooled it down a little. Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they?
If it's not rain, it's a 3-day wind.
But Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I know it. I feel it. But just then, for a minute, I was thinking about the farm. And for a minute, I was there. And my baby was in my lap, as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again? Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go back and live all those days over again?
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Emily, don't. It's not what you'd think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it.
Yes?
So you know what they down there never do. You know what's going to happen next. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
But is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all of that and think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? It's all I know. It's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day in your life. It will be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married. Or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday, at least, can't I? I'll choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. You want any special time of day?
I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. It had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before. They had just begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
There's Main Street. There's Mr. Morgan's drugstore.
before he changed it. And the livery stable? Yes. It is 1899. It's 14 years ago. This is the town I knew as a little girl. There's the old white fence that used to be around our house. I'd forgotten that. I love it so. Are they inside? Yes. Your mother will be downstairs any minute to make breakfast. Will she? And you remember your father had been away, but he had taken the early morning train. No. He'd been away at his college to make a speech in Western New York, at Clinton. There's Harry Newsom! And there's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Bessie! Morning, Bill. Morning, Howard. You're up late. Been rescuing a party. Darn near froze to death down by Polish Town. Got drunk and lay out in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I took him.
Oh, and there's Stowe Crowell.
Good morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Hurry up, children. You'll be late for school.
Mama, I'm here. How young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come and dress up the kitchen fire if you'd like, but hurry. Good morning, Mr. Newsom. Ooh, it's cold.
10 below by my barn.
Think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Yes. Yes.
Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Mr. Webb. You're up early.
Yes, just been back from my old college in New York State. Been any trouble here?
Well, I was called up this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
We must get it in the paper.
Wasn't much.
Papa.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Went all right. Told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes, can't think of anything that happened special. Been right cold. Howie Newsom said it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yes, well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. It ain't Christian. Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Don't forget, Charles, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something special?
Oh, yes. I got something right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Oh, Charles, don't interrupt her now. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry, children, you'll be late for school.
I can't bear it. They're so young and beautiful. Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here! I love you! All, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough. Good morning, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl, and many happy returns. There are some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up to be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought this postcard album? I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over pretty early in the morning. Right nice of him.
George. I'd forgotten that.
Chew your bacon good and slow. It will help you keep warm on this cold day.
Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs. Mama,
Wally's dead too. His appendix burst on a camping trip to Crawford. We felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now, together. Mama, just for a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another. And there in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it. This is from you. My mama, it's just lovely, and it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful. But I hoped you'd like it. Printed all over for it. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so we had to send all the way from Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it in his manual training class, and he's very proud. Make sure you make a big fuss over it. Oh, your father has a surprise for you, too. Not sure what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. So all that was going on, and we never noticed. Take me back. Up the hill to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama. And Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking and Mama's sunflowers and food and coffee and new iron dresses and hot baths, sleeping, waking up. Oh, Earth. You're too wonderful for anyone to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life as they live it? Every minute.
No. The saints and poets may be, they do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look. It's clearing up. The stars are coming out.
Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes. Now you know. Now you know what it is to be alive, to go up and down, trampling upon the feelings of those around you, to spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years, and to always be at the mercy of one self-centered passion or the other. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Blindness and ignorance.
Simon Stimson, that isn't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. He knew them all. He used to sit on the porch during the evenings and tell them by name. Why, yes, sir, it was wonderful. Stars a mighty good company. Yes, yes it is.
Look, here's one of them coming.
That's funny. This isn't the time for them to be here. Goodness sakes. Mother Gibbs,
George. Dear, you stressed yourself.
It's George. And my boy Joel, under the stars. He used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to Earth. It wasn't like anybody believed him, but that's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that isn't a way to behave. He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs,
Yes, Emily.
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody is asleep in Grover's Corners. Shorty Hawkins has just seen the last train to Albany go by. In the livery stable, somebody is setting up late, talking. There are the stars, doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think that there are no living beings up there, just talk or fire. Only this one's straining away all the time to make something of itself. This strain is so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets the rest. 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You get a good rest too.